And we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Christmas Eve edition of the Researchers Report. And there's no Kerry tonight, but we have, a co-host who stepped forward last night, volunteered himself, and that's Brian McSurdy. Thank you, Brian, for being here tonight.
You're very welcome.
Our guest is Justin from MountainBeastMysteries. Thank you, Justin, for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. Good to talk to you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, welcome, Justin. Welcome.
Now, should we start with your new documentary that you're wanting to film, the Quest for Wild Man?
Yeah. So Bigfoot Quest for the Wild Man's kind of the latest project that I want to develop. And so I've mentioned it before where I'm trying to find this cave that is apparently full of bones. I don't know if they're Bigfoot bones or animal bones, what they are, but that I was kind of tipped off about that a couple years ago when I first talked to that taxidermist that we were just talking about before we went live.
Yeah.
When I went to visit him yesterday, he told me that he found out where the cave is pretty much. Like it's still not an exact area, but it's kind of narrowed down for me. So I know very kind of more precisely, I guess, where the cave is. So it's going to be a lot easier to find than I initially thought. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I want to kind of document that adventure.
Yeah. What else are you hoping to find? I mean, what do you know about the area? Why was you ticked off? What's the history behind it? You know.
So it's suspected that the creatures go to this cave in the winter, and that's where they hide out, like the females and the juveniles. Mostly they'll stay in the cave, and I've been told that the males will venture out in the winter and do all the gathering and things of that nature. But there has also been visual sightings, like people have actually seen the creatures near the cave entrance and all along the river that kind of runs by that area. So
wow,
there's a lot of sightings. It's really close to that habituation site in Alberta where you see those fancy tree structures. It's not too far away from there. So it's the right area. It's the perfect area. And there's a lot of encounters that happen out there. So.
And when are you wanting to go?
That's it. That's why.
Right. Okay. No, I mean, when are you wanting to go?
It's interesting. Like each time. I would like to go in the winter because that's where they're supposed to be during the winter at this cave, but it's difficult to get out there in the winter, right? A lot of the roads to get out there are they're not maintained. There's a lot of snow, and it's like I hiked out there in the summer, and it took a whole day to get out there just walking. So I don't know, in the summer it's easier to get out there, but then they're probably not in the cave, right? Because that's their wintering spot. But
isn't like getting there the least of your problems if they are there in the caves at that time? How are you going to approach it? What's your plan?
Very carefully. I don't know.
Tiptoeing.
I don't know. It'd be cool to set up. It'd be cool to set up cameras like near the cave entrance.
I was just going
to
say
that's what I was thinking. But then you get into the whole thing of, can they see infrared light? I don't know.
Chances are there's going to be some or evidence or movement of ground movement of something going in and out, some sort of trail maybe going in and out of the cave, or.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think you'd find tracks. Like, it'd be cool to try and find tracks there, but it'd also be cool to, it'd probably be safer to go in the summer because you probably won't enter the cave and run into one, right? But it'd be cool to explore the cave and see if you could find bones or hair or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's basically I want to find it so I can gather physical evidence like that, and hopefully a good video or image of one. That would be ideal.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard, or do you think they know how to store food?
They must have it figured out, but I mean, how long would they have to store food for? I mean, they're more than capable of killing an animal when they need it, I think. So I don't know how long they would even have to store food.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I know Bigfoot Odyssey have donated $100 to GoFundMe, and
Yeah, you guys are. Thank you so much. You guys are legendary.
you're welcome.
You did really well with your guys' campaign to try and get your expedition going. That's awesome.
Our Squatchathon.
Yeah.
Well, we did the Squatchathon, which is like I mean, we have raised a lot, but just in that 4 hours, I think we raised something like $1,700 in just 4 hours of just going live and having all sorts of people popping on and off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the money's, people will donate. It's not a great time of year, Christmas obviously, but I have put the link in the description if anyone wants to see this documentary happen, because as far as I'm concerned, Justin, you put out really good quality stuff, and I think a lot of people know that anyway. So if anyone wants to kind of be a part of it and help Justin, I know it's not a great time of year, but maybe next month.
It's literally the worst time of year.
It's terrible. Yeah, I know. There's nothing, is there, in the bank, in the pockets, in the purses. So maybe next month, if someone's got a couple of dollars, and you want to donate, I think Justin will really appreciate it. So,
but it's also the season of giving too. You got to remember that.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right. That's right. Yeah. So, who knows? So, aside from that, are you working on anything else at the moment?
I'm just wrapping up my second part to the Supernatural Sasquatch.
Oh, okay.
So I want to have that on YouTube before like January 1st.
All right. Okay.
That's the plan. I wanted to have it up before Christmas, but I have to push it back a little bit. So
what's can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it's basically continuing on, further investigating the supernatural elements of Bigfoot. So in the first one, we had a gentleman from Alberta who was having these sightings and a lot of strange things going on his property, which wasn't really like a really remote area. It wasn't near the mountains or anything. It was actually pretty close to a big city. And he was having these creatures come on his property, and they were, throwing pine cones at his house, and they were leaving tracks throughout the yard in the snow. And so I don't know, when I went to investigate it, it felt weird. Like it didn't feel like there was a physical creature walking around. It was something I couldn't explain. And there was weird things happening. Like we heard some sort of being or a creature running in the trees, like really close to us. And then I think we must have talked about this the last time I was on, where there was like a hoarse sound that,
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know if, we didn't find any traces of horse, any tracks of horse anywhere in the yard, and there was snow everywhere. So you could clearly see tracks of something if it would have left a track. But all there was these Bigfoot looking tracks. So it was just really strange. But yeah, I'm looking into that aspect of the Bigfoot thing and exploring the light anomalies, especially because there's somebody in my family actually who I'm not going to name, who had a weird experience where they saw a strange light orb flying around in the woods. And so because a lot of people are kind of associating that with Sasquatch sightings, I think it's something that probably should be looked into, even if you don't believe it. I mean, should be open to everything, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, as I was talking to you before, Brian, and you, Justin, I'll say it here that, we're hearing all these accounts of Bigfoot and sightings, and then we've had some guests on who are having things happen to them more on the supernatural level, being zapped, or I don't want to call it supernatural. I'm just saying there's different things happening to those people, and they're seeing different ways these Bigfoot are appearing. And the guy came on, Kevin, said, I don't care what people think. This is what's happening. I can't explain it. But this is what's happening. And I wonder if, and maybe someone will comment and say that there's other stuff happening to people who are having these encounters that they're not disclosing because they think it sounds a bit too out there. And it's, like you said before, just it's hard enough saying you've seen Bigfoot, but to then say that other stuff happened to me, I can understand why people might hold it back, but I just wonder if there's, people don't tell us everything that's happened to them because of those reasons.
Yeah, I think for sure people will leave elements out if they're not comfortable with it. I mean, yeah, like I said, coming forward with a Bigfoot account is kind of nerve-wracking enough. And then to add in elements like, oh, it just kind of appeared, or there were these weird flashes of light, and we saw these orbs, like, then it's really, I mean, you can understand why people would leave that out.
Yeah,
yes.
So, definitely. What do you think, Brian?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because that's like we were talking, for earlier that and you're gonna you're gonna tell somebody you had seen Bigfoot. Now you're gonna start telling them that it disappeared, reappeared, lights flew out of it, or came with it. So just getting the Bigfoot part out alone is a big step in somebody's life. To let alone just like try to tell all the other stuff with it. But like this guy here is brutally honest. So he just either you take it or you don't. That's what, like she was saying, this is what happened to him. He's just telling it fully. So does it make you think that are other people seeing this too, but they're not sharing that side of it, or maybe they're not experiencing it? It's just odd. It's very odd. I just found the whole subject very odd.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. Well, Daniela, you mentioned you had Ron Moorhead on.
Yeah.
And they had weird stuff going on at the Sierra camp. Like not just Bigfoot audio, but strange light anomalies, if I can recall correctly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The Sierra sounds are a pretty, I think they're a pretty solid piece of evidence. So I don't, as of yet, have any reason not to believe the stuff that Ron's come forward with. I mean, it all seems pretty legit to me, but I've been wrong about things before, so.
It feels like it was so long ago as well, and maybe on the format that you're recording it, it's a little bit harder to hoax something that's been out for so long. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? And then to hear what Scott Nielsen says about it, he broke it down and said it's some sort of language. They're talking. Right. They're in conversation with each other, in some way.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did a really good talk, and he said at one point it sounded like one of them said something and almost laughed at its own kind of joke. It's just the way it responded. So I don't know. It's really interesting. A
very fascinating bit of evidence there. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you found any tracks or anything. I've talked to Ron, but I've never really. When you're presented with the chance to talk to him, it's at the time, it's hard to think of all those things later on. You think, oh, why didn't I ask him that? But we'll have him on again and we'll ask him. So, what do you think about? Well, let's not UFOs, aliens. Have you?
Okay. Aliens are like the one thing that I'll just believe in without seeing one. You know what I mean? It's different than Bigfoot for me. I feel like it's impossible that there wouldn't be aliens. Just based on how big the universe is.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just think the odds are that we're not the only ones. And I've seen things. I can't remember who I was talking to about this, if it was on your show or somebody else's. But there were a few times where I have seen weird things in the sky that definitely weren't airplanes. So I don't know what they were, but
some sort of spacecraft or lights, or don't know.
Oh, the one you could see like you could see lights, but it was so close to me and low that you could see the body of it. And it didn't look like an airplane, that's for sure. So
it's
I
hard
think
to
I was
know,
talking,
isn't it?
yeah,
Well,
I was talking to Ben Walgate from 401 Files, the YouTube channel 401 Files. I think it was on a discussion we did where I kind of went over a lot of those experiences. But I don't know, then you can get into the crazy stuff of, is Bigfoot an extraterrestrial? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to clarify now that I don't believe in any of this stuff. Like I'm not set on one thing. I'm just open to everything, right? Like, I don't know if it's supernatural. I don't know if it's flesh and blood.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to take in all the information and then kind of filter through it.
It's kind of hard to make sense of it, though, isn't it?
It is. Well, when I was talking to Ken Walker yesterday, he said something to me where he was kind of describing like the gathering of evidence, and he said it's kind of like when you're panning for gold, you scoop up a big pail of gravel and you swish it around and you keep swishing around and filtering through it till you get the nuggets, right? So that's kind of what you have to do. You have to take everything in at first.
Yeah. It's knowing what the nuggets are, though, as well, isn't it? That's the thing, is it's just nothing to corroborate anything, unfortunately. And I think for me with UFOs is I don't associate it kind of with aliens, because I think there could be so many military aircrafts and all sorts out there that we don't know about, and technology that we don't know about. Who's to say it's not government owned? I mean, who knows? I know, Brian, you've had a few UFO. Do you want to share one of them?
Yeah, well, just not sure the one we just had the other day while I was at work. It was like 17 degrees out down in West Virginia. We were outside of Clarksburg, PA, and I work on scaffold for a living, but I was on the ground, so the work's above me, so I'm looking up, and I catch this, and we see airplanes going, and mind you, they got contrails going behind them, and I'm seeing them in the morning. So I catch this thing that just caught my eye, and it was like, it was rotating because you'd catch a flash of it. Then you catch a flash of it. And it wasn't far out there with a satellite that we were catching in the daylight, because I follow the satellites at night and go out and watch them cross my sky where I live here, because I'm really into that part. But this was very odd. And I got a coworker of mine. I said, look, what do you think that is? And he first said a plane, because when it wasn't flashing, you could still see it. It was a gray, definitely was gray. And it didn't look as big. It looked a little bigger than the planes that we were seeing. Probably, I don't know if it was lower or higher. Couldn't tell the altitude of it, but it was just very odd for something to be in the sky in broad daylight, clear sky, and it was like it was spinning, because it would have a glare to it every so often, like it was making revolutions. But when it wasn't flashing, it had a color to it, but it wasn't leaving no contrail, and it was moving at a good clip across the sky. So that was a fairly odd thing, and that just happened the other day.
There's so much going on in the sky. I've got a question for you here. Upon entering the cave, will you have a paramedic team available in the event that you're in encounter with a group of Sasquatch in hibernation? Hello, Joe.
Probably not.
I mean, we don't even know.
I haven't really planned out how I'm going to go about entering the cave yet. That's the hard part, right?
I think that's the biggest thing. That's the most thing I want to know about, is how you're gonna.
I'm just gonna fly a drone into the entrance, probably.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's a good
idea. I don't know.
Safety first.
How long will you have to stay out there?
I mean, when there's a video I have on my channel where me and Keenan from the Alberta Sasquatch organization, we hiked out there, and we spent the night at this one spot because we were exhausted and we didn't feel like going any further. So we hiked to this spot in one day, and I found out yesterday when I was talking to Ken that area where we camped in is incredibly close to where this cave is supposed to be, like maybe a maximum of 2 kilometers from there. So
that's the video where you hiked up the river?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I initially thought it was way further. down the river, like another probably like 10 kilometers, but it's not. So I was trying to get to the wrong area basically. And I was unknowingly already very close.
Very close.
Yeah. So I mean,
out in the middle of nowhere.
Pardon me?
That looks to be out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you can drive to a certain point and then you gotta hike. Like, I think that to the area we camped, it was like 17 kilometers or something like that.
Wow.
I don't know. It was pretty far.
Right.
So what you're thinking? Less than a week? Then you're gonna stay overnight, a couple of nights, and
it depends. It depends how long it takes to actually find the entrance to the cave.
Okay.
So
what do you take with you then? When what do you take in your rucksack? What's your kit?
It depends. Like, I'll probably go without a tent, so I'll probably build a shelter just to keep the weight down. Sleeping bag, food, obviously. Usually dehydrated meals, just because they're so light.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep the weight down as much as possible, and I got to carry like all the camera equipment and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's the heaviest part, is all the camera gear. It ends up, I don't know, in that one video where me and Keenan were hiking there, I walked the whole way with my 70-pound pack on, a big camcorder in one hand and a shotgun in the other, and I was dead by the time I got there.
So what do you train a little bit before you go on these hikes, these expeditions? Do you and put the walk in, or?
I usually go to the gym regularly,
okay.
and that's the extent of that. I do hike all the time, so
yeah,
I'm usually in decent shape to do those kinds of things, but I don't know. Right now it's Christmas and I'm going to be eating a lot of food, so I'll probably be out of shape.
Back in the gym after that. So what else are you doing? You just got this supernatural thing coming out. You're hoping to raise enough for the expedition. What are your other interests?
I'm interested in other like video projects as well. Like, I would like to do more dramatic stuff in my spare time. If you look on my YouTube channel, if you go to the main page where it shows like the popular videos on the channel, the most viewed video is actually a World War II short film that I made a couple years ago.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so I'd like to do more stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That stuff is a lot more challenging. It requires a lot more resources and a lot of planning. So I don't know.
Yeah. What did you actually start with when did you study to be to do film? Or
No.
was it something that came later?
It came later. So I went to school to learn how to be an outdoor guide. So I have a diploma in adventure tourism and outdoor recreation. And through that, I got into photography, and I was working as like a whitewater rafting guide in Jasper National Park. And part of that job was like taking pictures of these river trips every now and then. So that's kind of how it started. I was always interested in like video stuff ever since, well, I was 7 and I watched Star Wars for the first time. I think that's what got me into video. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was back in 2013. I was working at the Dinosaur Museum in Drumheller, Alberta, the Tyrion Museum. It's a really famous dinosaur museum. And one of the guys I was working with said it'd be a really good idea, or a fun idea, to make like a Bigfoot documentary. And I was like, oh yeah, that would be. And then like not too long after that, my dad told me about his weird experience on Vancouver Island. And then that's how that all happened.
What happened? Can you share that?
Yeah, so this is all kind of explained in my first film, Wild Man, My Search for Sasquatch. My dad was out in the mountains on Vancouver Island with a friend, and they went out fishing. They had a little rubber boat that they were sitting in, and twice something threw like a massive rock like into the water from the shoreline. The second rock that was actually thrown, my dad, he saw it. Like he saw it fly out of the bush, hit a tree. Like it hit the tree and the tree bent over, and then it fell in the water and the tree kind of popped up. And
right.
I don't know, he said it was quite shocking, and he was already a believer in the subject of Bigfoot. So he was trying to convince his friend that that's what it was, and kind of scared the crap out of them. I think they left right after that. But,
yeah, don't blame him.
Yeah.
Hello, Marianne. This is from Marianne. Justin, is other research only in Canada? Would you consider research in the US?
I'd definitely consider it. I want to go to like Washington and Oregon.
All right.
Even places like the Himalayas or like Australia. It'd be cool to explore those areas where there's these other upright bipedal cryptids, you know, like the Yowie, the Yeti, and I don't know. I was always interested in the Yeti. Like it's fascinating, the history there.
Definitely. Mina Sparrow, I can hear the tapping too. I don't know if it's phone tapping, but is anyone tapping? Brian, are you tapping anything? So
no, it's
tapping
like
going
static.
on. Right, could be.
Yeah.
Question
for you, Justin, is that how many people like were there where you live? Because that Steve guy on how to hunt. He seems like where he lives, his whole area, there's a lot like Sasquatch is normal. Like in your area, is it normal?
He's in British Columbia, and it's more normal there.
Okay.
He's got a lot more remote wilderness than here, like where I am right now.
Right.
The area I go to and the area where this cave is basically right on the edge of the Rockies and into the foothills. And where Steve is, it's all just mountainous, forested, like just insanely dense bush and really, really difficult terrain.
Right.
So yeah, and the people out there in British Columbia, they're more inclined to believe it is a reality as well. Is what I've found. They actually have a place. They have a place called Sasquatch Provincial Park.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you looked into any other cryptids? Have you heard of any tales of other creatures?
I've been hearing lots of things about the dog man. That's the biggest one people seem to be interested in. It's closely associated with Bigfoot too. So,
funnily enough, someone's just asked the same question.
No, dogman stories.
What do you think?
I don't hear lots of actual like reports about Dogman where I'm from. It seems to be more so a thing down where you guys are in the States.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I haven't heard of any from Alberta or British Columbia personally. Maybe they're out there. But
what do you think they are?
I don't know. I have to look into it more because it could be something misidentified. I don't know. Maybe it's the Sasquatch that just kind of looks more dog-like or baboon-like. Right? Because a baboon kind of has a snout.
Yeah. It's,
that's a hard one to grab, the dog man thing, because a dog on its feet walking on two legs, like I think it's a misidentified Sasquatch. That's my opinion, though. It doesn't mean it's right, but
it sounds a lot more crazy than just Bigfoot, right? Like a dog man.
Yeah, that's like something you'd say that, then you definitely would be crazy. I don't know, but people say they see him. That's hard. That's just a hard one for me that'd be something I'd have to see for sure.
Well, imagine seeing like Catman. Is there Catman out there too?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems weird.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. But you tend to find that the dogman encounters are scary. You'd rather meet a Bigfoot than a dogman when you listen to those stories, and they're deliberately trying to scare people. You know, they seem to be brave enough to come and knock on your window, look in them, and try and grab kids. I don't know. It just seems a totally different thing. But I just find it strange how there could be two elusive creatures out there, not just Bigfoot that we can't, get hold of, but also this dogman that's running around as well. I don't know.
They would almost have to be paranormal creatures, skinwalkers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. Mothman. Have you heard anything about Mothman?
The extent of my Mothman knowledge is the Mothman Prophecies movie.
Yeah,
and maybe watching a couple shows about it. But I'm mostly focused on the Bigfoot thing, and I like to read about like ghosts and paranormal encounters like that, and weird entities. Some of the weirder stuff, like the black-eyed kids, those stories are really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Bigfoot's the most tangible thing to go out looking for, right? It's hard to go look for like an alien or a UFO. I guess you could go look for ghosts.
Yeah.
You probably have a better chance of getting footage of a ghost than you do of Bigfoot.
So, you're right.
I was just looking at a question then. Have you had a paranormal experience then with a ghost or anything like that?
I'm pretty sure. I have a video on my channel about it, actually. I think it's like the second or third video, like a long time ago. I made a video about it, and I kind of relate it to like sleep paralysis. I was like 8 years old, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and across from the bed there was a walk-in closet, and the door was open, and this is in the middle of the night. And I just randomly wake up, and I look right into the closet, and there was a figure of a man just standing there, like a white figure, and I'll never forget it. Like, it's burnt into my mind. And I just looked at it, and I was trying to scream, but I couldn't. I could barely move. But eventually, I mustered up the courage to jump out of the bed and run out of the room. So that makes me question like the sleep paralysis part of it, because I did eventually leave the room, and I ran out and I told my dad that I saw a ghost, and he started laughing at me. Started laughing at me and made me go back to bed in that room. So
yeah, very supportive.
But it was like a full body apparition of what I interpreted to be a man.
They're the kind of thing. I had something very similar when I was a kid as well. I was asleep. When I say asleep, I was in bed and I was young, and I just remember turning my head round behind me, and there was a white figure stood by my bed, and I have a feeling it was a female because it kind of felt like it was a flowing gown kind of thing, and it didn't say anything to me, but I just got the impression that it was kind of saying it's all right, don't worry, and I wasn't worried. It didn't seem to worry me, and when I turned around again, it had gone. And the reason why I don't think it's a dream is because I've never forgotten it. It's something that's stuck in my mind, and I think dreams you can forget over time, but this thing I've never. It's weird.
Yeah, it's very similar. Very similar to my experience. Like, it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like an actual memory that is very clear.
Yeah.
The house I'm staying in, 3 people had passed away in this house. And
I
see shadow. But one was my grandma, one was an uncle, and another one was my grandfather's girlfriend. But in that note, I see shadows. And one night I'm laying in my bed, and my ceiling fan, now mind you, there's no air, no windows are open, and it just started turning really super slow, slower than any speed, turning it on. That's one incident just that was the oddest thing ever. I'm looking up, and all of a sudden the ceiling fan starts turning so slow, and I'm like, wow, whoever's here, just thanks for letting me know you're here, looking out for me maybe. But I'll see dark shadows, and people say they catch a shadow or they'll see something. I catch that a lot, and sometimes I hear people sound like somebody's walking on the floors. It used to freak me out at first, but I just associate it with one of the 3 that passed away here, just stopping by to say hi.
Yeah.
Total believer in that, though. Total believer in that.
Yeah. It's a lot better if you I guess you would have a personal connection to who the entities might be, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to just moving into a house and then all of a sudden having weird stuff happen, like in all the movies.
Like in the cellar and, scratching the attic. I don't know how those people can stay in those houses. Because you hear about it, don't they? And they go, we were there for 2 years and this banging kept carrying on and the scratching. And I just don't know how you could sleep at night, let alone, stay there.
Yeah.
All stuff's going on. People are experiencing stuff, and there's just no logical answer to a lot of these experiences. We actually had a good two guests on the other night who one is and had things happen to him by aliens, entities as a young child, and he says he just can't explain it. Trying to explain the unexplainable is a very difficult thing for people to do, but it just makes you think how many people are getting affected by something in their lives, how many people actually experience something, or it's happening around them and they don't pick up on it. Some people are more cut off to it. I don't know if people can be susceptible to these energies. Same with Bigfoot. I don't know if it's certain people who are getting to have that encounter with them. If they are intelligent creatures and have good intuition and know people's intent, because I think they could get away quite easily if they wanted to, but for some reason they're showing themselves to people.
You always hear that. Sorry, you always hear that they choose who they want to reveal themselves to, is what you always hear.
Yeah.
Or it's that, or it's an accident, like they didn't want to be seen, but they crossed the road at the wrong time, or maybe they're luring people away from the little ones. You hear stuff like that, but
there's also those that are encroaching on people's properties. And they don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. Why? I know some people say curiosity, but if they are trying to avoid humans and they're clever enough to do that, they're taking a risk each time by coming closer to us, aren't they?
Yeah, it's weird. Like last winter in the Supernatural Sasquatch film I made, they were on that guy's property, like basically harassing him. And this is one of the biggest issues I guess I have right now with what I'm looking into. That when I think about the cave thing and how they are supposed to be at the cave during the winter, why were these creatures out on this guy's property in the winter as well? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So somebody's story might not be accurate. I don't know. I have to find out. I have to go look.
Yeah.
Or the cave could be their house, like you were just saying. Like, they come up to walk around people's houses. That's how we live. Maybe that cave is their house, and they just go out and play, and then have a place to return to.
Yeah, I mean, and also I guess there could be ones that maybe are solitary. Maybe not all of them are very like tight-knit family groups. Maybe some of them are solitary. I don't know. Just like how you think like maybe some of them have good attitude, maybe some of them have bad attitudes. I like to kind of think of them as people in a way. Like, there's probably going to be like grouchy ones and happier ones, right? Just like with dogs or like some sort of animal. You got nice dogs, and then you have bad dogs.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, do you think they actually hibernate, or that they just use because I mean, you see a lot of print tracks in snow, don't you? So that kind of doesn't make sense. I think any animal, even cattle, if you put a shelter up, if you put a roof up, they will use it. Most animals will use shelter if you provide it for them. And I just think Bigfoot's got to go underground or in caves at night. Then I can't see them camping out, in the cold.
I like to think of it as like people, right? Like, if you look at First Nations cultures, especially in the winter, they're going to be in shelter. They're not hibernating because they're people, but they're taking shelter from like the elements, extreme elements, more so than they would in the summer, right? So I like to think of it more like people than like animals, I guess.
Yeah. This is a good point. I also think this. Do you think that from JJ, Justin, do you think that Bigfoot that are further from human civilization are more aggressive, dangerous, or perhaps more feral because they're just out there and
I don't know. I really have to speculate answering that question, right? You hear a
yeah,
lot of the accounts of these creatures on people's property, like killing deer or like I made a video about the siege of Hanabi in Oklahoma, and those creatures were basically trying to get in the house. Then again, that was after apparently one of them was shot. But
God, yeah.
I think it depends.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're speculating now. Like,
well, we can only speculate, can't we? I mean, what else can we do?
That's a hard one to answer because like there could be mean ones and nice ones out in the woods too. I mean, Patty didn't seem very aggressive, and that was in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So the Freeman footage, I don't know how far he was from civilization, but that creature was just walking. A lot of times they're just walking around.
Right.
So, I don't know.
From Sandy D, do you go back to Henry Lake at all to see if anything is still going on?
I haven't been back there, but I did have a subscriber and he checked it out. He said nothing happened really. But when my dad went there, that was like 6 years before I went out there. And in between that time, the logging companies had moved into the area and basically cut down all the trees around the lake. And they built a little, like a gravel road around the lake. So I kind of suspect that after they did that, then the creatures, if they were actually there, they probably moved on to a different area.
Right. Okay. This one's from Robin Ward. Justin, what do you think is happening to all the missing people in Canada and the USA?
That's also a good question. I think it's a combination of different things. Because obviously people will go missing in the woods just by getting lost, right? There was a guy he was hiking out near Nordic where I like to go hiking. He ended up going missing. And then a few weeks later, somebody who was involved in the Bigfoot field in Alberta actually found his body. And he fell. Basically, he died and he fell. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. There's accidents, there's animal attacks. That's one thing. But there are the weird cases, like the missing 401 cases, like the Dennis Martin thing. You know, you hear rumors. Like in that case, somebody said they saw some sort of weird creature carrying a child, right? And they end up like at an extreme distance away from where they originally were, and like I don't know. I watched the second Missing 411 documentary, and it was really interesting. Like some of the cases are strange, so I don't know what it is. Bigfoot, aliens. I know, like there was a person that I knew like years back who went missing in Jasper National Park. They never found the guy. Right. So people do go missing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a chance that if you have fallen, hurt yourself, or killed yourself, something can come along and drag you off and your dinner for something, and you're just not going to be found. You know, it's easy, isn't it, for some to imagine? I mean, I can't imagine there's Bigfoots. I don't know. You know, just we're obviously not hearing from the ones if they have been killed, but you'd think, you know, that we'd be finding out, or we'd be finding parts of people, or I don't know. Like you say, it's just speculation, isn't it?
You do have the legendary cases like the Albert Osman case where he was actually apparently picked up in a sleeping bag and carried off for days.
Yeah.
And then the Mushalat Harry case, which happened, I think, like 4 years after. Not too far away. These were both in British Columbia. A gentleman was captured by a group of these creatures, like, and there was a bunch of them, like 20 or so of these creatures, and he was able to escape as well. But I mean, we haven't heard of a case like that for like 100 years almost. So
yeah,
Wasn't that little boy recently that he said he was cared for by a bear?
Yeah.
And then they found him. You know, they searched the area and he wasn't there. And then he showed up in an area where they had already searched that several times.
Yeah.
That was an odd story. Yeah.
I don't know.
A mystery.
It's very unsettling to think of.
I don't see a bear taking care of a little kid at all. I think the bear would either eat the little kid. He's not going to nurture it like one of its own. So that seems like a very logical, even, I don't know. That seems like a Sasquatch story to me, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just misidentified. The little kid didn't know what it was. To him, it was a bear, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's all the First Nations tales of them taking people.
Yes.
I've got another one.
Yeah,
go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, on the west coast of British Columbia, the Zunaqua is one of the legends. It's the wild woman of the woods. And in their tales, she would walk around in the forest carrying a big woven basket on her back, and she would take all the children, put them in her basket.
Yeah. Thomas Stewart has told us about that. He's over there today on Vancouver Island. On your supernatural show, did you find footprints on that guy's property? Could you follow them?
Yeah, there were footprints. You can see them in the video. They started on the road, like outside of his property, and then they crossed a fence and then went into his property through the trees and up past his house. And then they disappeared where there's a really steep drop off down this ravine where there's like a river. But beyond that ravine, we couldn't see any tracks, but that's where we heard whatever the creature was running towards us, and then the horse noise. And we kind of explored that area the next, I think it was a day or maybe 2 days after. We went down there and tried to find tracks of anything and couldn't find any tracks. And there hadn't been fresh snowfall, so nothing was covered up. So I don't know. I can't explain that.
Yeah.
No, I like that video. That's a good one.
Could it have jumped onto something, or was it open sort of ground?
It's possible that it could have, like maybe climbed a tree or something. It's the same like in my Wild Man documentary, the first one. We would find like 2 or 3 tracks that looked like Bigfoot tracks where you could see the toes, and then they would just disappear.
Yeah.
So that's a really common thing that happens, is people will find a couple tracks or like 3 or 4 tracks, and then there's nothing. So that's another thing that kind of leads you to believe that, oh, maybe they like slip in and out of our physical realm, I guess, you know. I was thinking about that. Like, I don't, if they can do that, I don't think it's a thing that they choose to do. I think it's like just their nature, that they're just kind of existing in that in-between zone, you know, where they just slip in and out without doing it on purpose, I guess. This is just a theory, if that's what they are, you know.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about the smell that they give off? Do you think it could be a gland, and it's something that they emit when they're tense, or?
It's possible. It's possible. I've heard that they will like pee all over themselves or whatever to make a smell. I've heard weird things, but also just imagine being an animal that just is covered in hair and lives outside 24/7. You're gonna smell pretty bad anyways. So
that's an interesting point, actually, because I mean, most things that are on 4 legs, like dogs, cats, or whatever, they have a way of peeing, don't they? But if you're upright and you don't know how to use a toilet, I mean, it's just a point, isn't it, of how do they go about it? I don't know. Just another thing to think about and question, I guess.
Somebody got to catch one in the act video.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody needs to catch him in the act on video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't smelt anything yet. So
no.
Even when I was on that guy's property who had them around his house, I couldn't smell anything. So I don't know. You don't hear that all the time.
No.
Like, it's not in every Bigfoot case where it smells, so I don't know.
That's why I think it's some sort of gland, maybe, that they emit it when they're a bit more, you know, tense, or they think something's going on, or like
Yeah.
because I think if, you know, like if we don't shampoo our hair, the oils will clean our hair. You know, it's because we use shampoos. It's like an emulsifier. But like dogs, cats, they kind of are clean animals. You know, their furs, they don't really smell of anything unless they're rolling in stuff. But naturally, I think any animal with natural oils will keep its fur clean. So this is why I don't think it's goes around minging, you know, smelling and stinking because it hasn't had a wash. I don't know. It's just another.
It could be like a defense thing, like to repel people. I mean, if you walk into that smell, it's going to be so offensive that you're not going to want to go closer to it. You know?
Yeah, you hear that, don't you? That someone's like a wet dog, sick or whatever, and someone said I've seen them wearing deer hides. Is this a Bigfoot? Do you want to can you elaborate on that one, please, Stacey Clark? I might not have got the full story there.
Some cases you hear from way up north, like in the Yukon, near the Nahanni River. There's cases and reports of Sasquatch-like creatures, but they're wearing like very makeshift, raggedy clothes. I don't know if it's out of stuff that they kind of like scrounged or stole or fashioned out of hides of some sort of animal, but there are stories and legends of these creatures wearing some sort of primitive clothing. But then again, in those parts of North America, there are tales of like there's multitudes of these kinds of creatures. Like they have different types of Bigfoot-like creatures. There's not just one. There's different ones. Some of them are more people-like, more like an ancient primitive people, and some of them are more ape-like. But it's very, very prominent in their culture.
Yeah.
Is that because the different First Nation tribes, they all describe it like a different way, maybe?
Well, it's the Dene people specifically. So they would all describe these different creatures. One of them was more of like a giant type of being that they said were very cannibalistic and very warlike. And then they also say that there is like the classic Sasquatch-like creature. They call it Nakani. And yeah, there's probably 3 or 4 other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head. But
right.
Lots of mysterious things going on up there.
Yeah. Brandon Showman makes a good point here. I have also thought of this is if I was Bigfoot, I would fart to shoo people away. Maybe they do, you know, maybe the stuff they're eating is.
You could do that as a human being as well.
Yeah.
Clear the
air. Another one from Marianne. Justin, what's your thoughts on the skinwalkers?
That's something I am not like. I can't really touch on that because I don't look into it very often. I've mostly stuck to like Bigfoot and ghosts and aliens. Those are like that's the trifecta for me, I guess. I haven't really read too much into it. It seems like it's I don't know. I don't want to say it's too out there because people do experience these things, but it's just not something that I can readily go and investigate, I guess. So I don't really spend time looking into it.
There seems to be there does seem to be these places that are like hotspots for these occurrences to happen. Like Skinwalker, the place in England at Bempton where there's people going missing, lights, UFOs, werewolves, just so many strange things, almost like a Bermuda Triangle in a way.
Yeah.
What do you think that is, or could be? I know you don't know, but these places that seem to attract, and I think they're usually near military bases as well.
Yeah, that I honestly don't know what it could be. I guess it could be some sort of weird thing that's throwing off compasses and things are just getting turned around like that. And if they're planes, they're crashing. If they're ships, I don't know. or it's a portal. I have no idea.
Yeah, could be.
The natural magnetic fields of the earth, like you just said, throwing off compasses. Yeah, that would wreak havoc on a plane flying.
Totally. Yeah.
Again, it's only your opinion, but what about the missing people on the Highway of Tears in Colombia?
That I have to Google. I've heard of this Highway of Tears, but I haven't looked into it. It sounds terrifying. I don't know. I know there's a lot of in Canada, in Alberta, in BC, there's a significant amount of First Nations women that go missing, but it usually ends up being due to, people getting kidnapped and things like that. So,
what's your thoughts on these structures? Territorial to ward off other Bigfoots?
I think the structures, if they are in fact Bigfoot related, then I think they're more of like a territorial thing, probably. To, I guess, show us that they're in the area. There's, at the habituation site in Alberta where all the structures are, there's a road that was built in that area. And I'm pretty sure the structures were put there after the road was built. So I kind of suspect people went in, built the road, and then maybe they went in and built the structures, saying okay, this is our area.
The only thing I think about that is how do they know what else leaves us messages? What creatures leaves us messages?
Well, just people, if they want to do a prank.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I don't think those structures are for us to understand. Like some people think they're a message or a code or something. I actually don't think they're for us if they are leaving them. And I mean, I don't know. There's just,
that's something we'll probably never find out.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
it's interesting, that area where those structures are in my videos. There's an area close by there that I didn't know about, that I found out about yesterday when I was visiting the taxidermist. And I actually saw some pictures in his new documentary of some structures that I haven't even seen yet, that are out there somewhere. So I want to try and find these other structures and get them on video for you guys, because they're equally as impressive.
Is that documentary of that taxidermist, is that out?
Not yet. I think it's doing the film festival circuit right now, and then after that it'll be out.
Okay. And that one structure, that road where you go, I think it's in your habituation site, the one that had the tree that was across, hanging in midair.
Yeah.
Is that still up?
No, that's the one that fell down.
That's the one that fell down? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I had my trail camera pointed right at it.
Right at it.
And it didn't capture what happened. I was certain I was going to capture a person taking it down. And I was shocked to find that I didn't even get that. So I don't know. In some of the video clips, you can see it was incredibly windy in that area when the storms were blowing through, and you could see the trees just swaying like crazy. So it is possible that it was a wind event.
Right. Right.
I don't know. Then again, it is
ultimately Sasquatch. Though with big.
Sorry, Daniela, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying. Ultimately, though, with Bigfoot, unless even if we get a body, we're still nowhere near having the answers, I guess, to what it does. Because I can't imagine us being able to capture one and keep it in captivity. Especially not one on its own anyway. You know, seems like every creature that's been classified, we've got it, we've examined it, we know how they live. This feels like a creature that we're never going to get to maybe experience that, just because of how elusive it is and how clever it is.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to capture a live one We're not going to capture one. We're not going to be able to just ask it why it's doing these things. I mean, the closest thing we have to that right now is the mind speak phenomenon, which I don't know if it's, so many people are claiming to have experienced it, even people like Les Stroud. So I don't know what's going on. And I do know there's a lot of people nowadays who do suffer from like mental health issues. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, guys, we are coming up to the end of the hour. Please check out the links in the description and go and check out Justin's GoFundMe, maybe after Christmas or at the end of January when you get paid again and there's a little bit more cash in the bank. Brian, I want to thank you for coming on with me tonight.
Thank you.
Everyone, I'm just going to put this out again. I'd love to hear your suggestions for guests for next year. Drop me a line, ourguest2020@gmail.com. I did get quite a few responses last night, so thank you for those. And this is actually the last researchers report for this year, and we're going to be back on Saturday the 4th of January, and I want to wish everyone a really happy Christmas and a great new year. And you, Justin, hope you have a good Christmas tomorrow with your dinner, whatever you're eating. Thank you, Brian. Hope you have a good Christmas. And
Merry Christmas to you guys.
Everyone in the chat, thanks for your support this year and everything. And I look forward to seeing you all in the new year. So bye for now.
All right. Merry Christmas, everyone.